If you think about it, the former FBI director, Robert Mueller, who is now put in charge of being the special counsel in this whole Russian Trump investigation mess that could take for some time here, that is a whole separate drama that has to play out, and it could be a while here. And with me now is the former White House independent counsel, Robert, on where this process goes. Robert, I'll show you this again, and thank you, Navy, for getting me this magazine here. Well, Time magazine has already concluded. It's all true. All the allegations are true. The Trump White House has been moved to Moscow. What do you think?
Apparently, we don't need.
I want to just go ahead.
On that theory, apparently we don't need to have an investigation.
Exactly. Right.
No, we do need to have an investigation, and it's in the country's best interest, I think, consistent with the decision of the Deputy Attorney General to get to that task as quickly as possible and get it done.
Compounds the difficulties with something like that.
Look, you're dealing in a political environment. This is not, no one said it was going to be easy.
You dealt with that.
But I dealt with that, and you do the best that you can. It's important, I think, to show results and get to the finish line, whatever the answer is.
But were you cognizant that no matter what you came out with, there would be those in the media who would have an automatic reaction, and that no matter how much you toiled and researched and studied and vetted, wouldn't be happy?
Sure, that comes with the territory, but ultimately the guide is public sentiment about the ability to have an investigation with integrity. I had 3 statutory words that I was charged with: prompt, responsible, cost-effective. Emphasis on the word prompt.
And you also kept your cool, which would be very tough for me. But let me ask you a little bit about how long this could take. Some people are of the opinion it could, just a matter of weeks. Tell me the truth. What do you think?
The truth is it will not be a matter of weeks. That a criminal investigation takes time to both investigate and then make decisions about whether or not prosecutions are warranted and proceed from there. I don't think the public tends to understand how long that process can take.
Give me an idea. What's your best guess?
Well, my own experience, and I think we've now lived through several independent counsel investigations where things took far too long, 4 years, 8 years, or even longer. I don't expect that it should take that long, and I think experience now being our guide, it shouldn't take that long because it's not in the public's interest to do that.
Are you cognizant of when a midterm election comes up?
I think the guide should be, not because, politics necessarily determine outcomes, but I think in the political environment that we are in, it is desirable for the country to have some resolution with regard to this in a period of 12 to 18 months, if it can be achieved.
All right. If it were 18 months, now you're
pushing it.
Yeah. So if you were to advise, you have to keep blinders on, I understand, but you would appreciate the enormity, as former FBI Director Comey did, about coming out with what he said about Hillary Clinton, then unstating it, weeks, days before.
October surprises are to be avoided. I tried to avoid that. On the other hand, I also, released findings with regard to the former First Lady in advance of her senatorial election, because I thought the voters had the right to know what my findings were in advance.
That was the thinking of Comey,
Well, in advance of issuing more formal findings in the final report, which was a statutory requirement. So it's important that the public...
that got her elected senator.
Well, sure, but I think the point is that the voters have a right to have some answers, and I think they're going to have some right to know.
Are you saying that Comey doing essentially the same thing with the original, saying that he wasn't going to pursue anything more?
Well, the timing wasn't entirely of his own making. I mean, he couldn't have made up Anthony Weiner. He couldn't have made up, the laptop. He couldn't have...
Well, that was a later development.
Sure.
Right.
But I think he did the best he could to try to, as he did it in July, that he, was sufficiently... It was unfortunate that he had to come back out again and then, make, revisions to his, to the outcome as a result of new information and new emails.
But how did you avoid, because I remember when you were conducting your investigation, that media, revelations and all that were coming concurrently, simultaneously to what you were doing.
I had a situation in which during the Democratic Convention it was publicly disclosed that I had impaneled a grand jury, which otherwise was supposed to be secret. I didn't tell anybody other than the people in my own office, except for the special division. And it turned out that one of the 3 judges talked to a reporter and disclosed it to the media. That's how the public came to find out that there was a grand jury investigation involving the then President of the United States. So, that's unfortunate. I learned my lesson from that, which is to say, if you don't want anybody in Washington to know what it is you're doing, you tell very few people, and the people that you tell, you're absolutely certain you can trust that won't leak out of your office, because leaks are just a part of, life. But to answer your
They
question,
seem to be a real part of this administration's life, and I can't figure out why.
well, I think with Bob Mueller, I mean, he's been through this drill before. He knows
Right.
how to keep a secret, and he will.
But no, I'm talking about beyond what you're trying to control, or he was trying to, is going to try to control. Within the Trump administration, there are a lot of leaks going on, and I'm wondering if a lot of that goes back to his combative relationship with the intelligence agencies and its payback time. What is happening?
Some of that is possible, and you're always going to deal with career people in Washington who don't owe political allegiance to you. They are an important part of government, which the president, I think, has come to understand. And, you know, presidents come and go, but civil servants remain. You have to deal with that situation carefully. But I think, you know, as far as the special counsel investigation is concerned, you have to do what you have to do, understanding that you're in that environment, that leaks will happen, to protect the integrity, the ongoing integrity of the investigation.
But how much cooperation did you get from the people you were investigating? For example, if you requested anything from the White House, was that material forthcoming?
No, there were all kinds of battles that went on within the Justice Department, the White House counsel's office.
So how do you think the Trump folks will respond to Mueller?
It's hard to say. I mean, but, you know, he's going to hire counsel. There'll be questions, legitimate questions, in my judgment, about the assertion of executive privilege probably along the way.
But what are your rights as an investigator when you get to this, and what are his? I mean, does he have free rein to get anything he wants from whomever he wants?
He'll obviously be given a certain amount of latitude and all the resources and support.
Who gives him that latitude?
The Justice Department will make sure that they steer a clear path for him so that he has what he needs. But with regard to dealings by his office and the White House counsel and counsel, you know, separately retained to represent the president's interest in connection with the investigation, sure, there are going to be battles along the way.
Who did you give updates to?
I gave updates among other people too. You were just mentioning Joe Lieberman was the ranking member on one of the oversight committees. I dealt with him. I dealt with Fred Thompson. I dealt with a lot of people in Congress.
Who will Mueller update?
He'll probably have to update
He wouldn't update Jeff Sessions, right?
No, but he'll update the relevant. He'll update with regard to significant matters Rod Rosenstein, because that's what the special counsel regulations envision.
And Rosenstein, by the way, never ran this by Sessions, of course, who had recused himself from this, nor to anyone at the White House. Are we to read anything into that, or is that just that's the way it should be?
That's the way it should be, and that's not just form over substance. That is substance. And that, you know, that's important. The fact that he made a decision to appoint a special counsel and then told the White House is the way it's supposed to work.
Did you ever feel the need to correct or clarify something that leaked out in the media? Because I suspect there'll be plenty of such movements.
Of course. And I did it because it was necessary to protect the ongoing integrity of the investigation.
Knowing that you could be tipping your hand where you're going.
Sure. And knowing that I would be criticized for speaking as a prosecutor publicly with regard to issues. I did it because that was what I felt was necessary to protect the investigation.
But these things can go far afield, right? Ken Starr, I mean, before you knew it, you were looking at the president's relationship with an intern.
They can go far afield, but remember also Rod Rosenstein retains the power to decide whether to grant an expansion of authority if Bob Mueller requests one. So there'll be.
So if he stumbles upon something.
There'll be some judgment involved, and he may stumble upon something. That's not an unusual thing for any criminal investigation.
Did you?
Sure.
And who granted you the authority to stumble?
I was a statutory appointment, so if I, you know, steered in a different direction, I was required to go back before the special division for an expansion of authority, which did happen.
And that would trigger concerns, whoa, he's on to something bigger here.
Could be.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's also, remember, the president also is entitled to an expeditious and responsible conclusion to the investigation on the assumption that there's no there there. If there's no there there, then, you know, Bob Mueller will investigate, decide what to do with what it is he has. If he finds crimes along the way, I'm sure he'll prosecute them. And if not, he'll also announce, look, this is what we looked at. It was a thorough investigation, and we ultimately concluded that there was no credible evidence that there was collusion with Russian officials by campaign officials in the Trump campaign. If he, you know, if he has the right an obligation both to pursue wrongdoing and bring charges if he finds that appropriate, and also, by the same token, to exonerate to the extent that he determines that there's not sufficient evidence there.
But how do you pitch of someone's word against another? This is a little far afield here, but the president says he never told Comey to back off of Flynn. Comey insists in his notes that the president did. It's like a he said thing.
Well, it's also a matter of degree. I mean, I think, frankly, both could be true. I mean, on the one hand, the president didn't actually insist or demand that Comey back off. On the other hand, you know, you can read those notes the way you can read them about an intimation or about what his hopes were. But, you know, that's far afield, at least in my view, based on, you know, that's all we know.
If there are tapes, would you ask for them?
That's not obstruction of justice. Well, sure. If I'm the investigator, yeah, am I asking for tapes? You're darn right. They're going to ask for them, and if they don't get them, they're going to subpoena them.
And do you think Time then has to redo its cover if the president is completely exonerated?
Well, we'll see about that.
Okay, very much. Robert Ray, the former Whitewater independent counsel.